Hugo's story is an interesting one because he moved to the UK first to study. He was a teenager then. He stayed here for 3 years and he absolutely didn't like it. And he went back to Nigeria. Like he didn't like it so much that he reduced his school time from 4 years to 3 years and went back to Nigeria. But then 7 to 8 years later, he was back again. And it was interesting for me because people say that when you move as a student, you actually enjoy it more because you have time to explore the country and explore the people, and you have time to make friends. So this was like, okay, why? But let's hear him explain that himself. Enjoy, and welcome to the newcomers. So you've moved twice, student, and then the next time as work and stuff. I want to get into the differences, but first of all, I think for me is, did you enjoy being a student? Because I mean, people here in Canada say that when you move as a student, it's easier to integrate, it's much simpler and all that. Do you share that same feeling? Like, do you think moving as a student, worker, which one was better for you?
Uh, I think we need to decouple the two moves.
Okay.
So obviously I was younger so I came here from undergrad in 2009 to 2012, and how old was I then? Under 20s, right? And first time abroad, by the way, I'd never even got on a plane before. So I was on last of seven, so my parents just shipped me off, and then the last card. Now maybe they still had like spare cash or whatever. So that's why I said I don't regret being the last born, apart from all the errands and everything. But it was a new life. It was definitely culture shock. This is you've never seen anything like this. Maybe apart from the movies, but we don't even consume a lot of British movies and all that. So there was
Yeah.
pubs and the lifestyle and everything, and it was the people were friendly. I think it was a good mix of people. Oh, how are you, and where you from, and that kind of thing. But I think I had a serious bout of homesickness. I think that was the first time. So I mean, you go through primary school, secondary school. I was a distance. I was always close to home. But that was when I really felt on my own. Like I really felt I was out there. Like I was just a number. I didn't have my tribe. I didn't have
Mm.
my community. Like you could see that everyone was also coming from their own homes, and so it was different terrain altogether. And then I was in Sheffield, in northern England. I was doing a very technical course as well, chemical engineering, so it was quite challenging as well. So all the different bits and pieces, new friends, new all that kind of stuff. I tried to blend in. We used to go for they used to call it I think it was Afrobeats then. Like you had Afrobeats parties and all that kind of stuff. But personally, I just think I didn't quite settle, and it was that evident because originally it was I could do a 4 year master's degree, so it's called like Masters of Engineering (MEng). But I was so unsettled that I switched to a 3 year Bachelor's of Engineering so that I could just shorten it and then return home and then maybe do a master's in Canada or just start working. For me personally, I thought with a bachelor's degree, I'll do enough to work back home. And then around the same time, um, the conservative government, I remember Theresa May was Home Secretary then, they just scrapped the post-study work visa. So whatever you think is happening now has happened before. So that's why I like saying your life is cyclical actually. Nothing is new under the sun. And so lots of people because you know I entered in 2009 and that was something that was there. So by the time I was finishing, you had like 4 months to leave the country. Like if you didn't have a job offer, you had to leave. And among my friends, I think just one person out of like maybe 20 or 30 Nigerians, stayed back because he was really smart and, he told me the story of how he got settled and everything. And he's my friend till now, actually. We just reconnected on the second trip. So I'll kind of link it to how the second coming works. So that was my experience with the first missionary journey, I also like to call it. So went back to Nigeria, got my first job, talking to a few people, did NYSC, etc., etc. Then I got my real first professional job in a multinational. So I got into supply chain. That was where I got in. I was the material planner, logistics, freight, all that kind of stuff. I did that for almost 7 years, right? Became a manager. Career was progressing quite nicely. But personally, I think I felt like I'd hit a ceiling, right? When you just feel maybe out of favor, or you feel, I was telling my wife the other day, when you feel younger people are coming, and and then you it now looks like you're the blocker. I don't know. There's a term we used to have then, and it's a very terrible term. And I just felt okay. Something needs to change. And then I was based in Ibadan, right? Different lifestyle and everything, and I just felt something needed to change. I don't know if you just have that feeling that there's more to life out there. And then I started the whole research. I had friends. I mean, again, Buhari came in 2015, so
There was that too.
currency. Yes, there was that too. Currency devaluation. I think this whole jackpot trend had started. But funny enough, I was always an advocate of, nah, there's nothing there. Maybe because I had been there before. You know how
And
much
you didn't
fulfillment
enjoy it,
I
maybe.
did enjoy. Yeah, especially I remember when some colleagues had left. Years prior, and I used to say, "Ah, are they really fulfilled? Like this were like men with children, and yes, not like my view was, what are they doing there? By the way, like when they moved, are they doing the equivalent job they were doing in Nigeria? No, are they still big boys? Are they still driving cars and that kind of stuff? And for a long time, for like a couple of years, my answer was no. Like I didn't think you know life was more fulfilling for them. But then the story started to change when I started hearing examples. Again, goes back to the power of storytelling and just knowing people,
Yeah.
like, especially in the UK. So I knew someone who had gone to do a master's, and after they finished master, they started working professionally and, earning good money and everything. And I knew friends. So I used to work in consulting for like, I worked in KPMG briefly, right? So but I made friends there. And I knew because of the whole Brexit thing or whatever, I know the UK had, a huge demand for auditors. So I had like 5 or 6 friends, people I knew personally, who had left from Nigeria to the UK. So it meant that the UK was opening up again. So did my research, tried the Canada option, didn't really work out. Looked at the UK option, and bang, that was it. Like from the point of when I made the decision to come in, it was like 4 months. Like it was, it was so crazy. My wife now, she was my girlfriend then. She was also always on the jackpot train, and I was not. So when I switched, it was it was like Paul on his way to Damascus. He was, he was going to persecute the church, and then God. So she was like, oh my God, God really answered my prayer, because obviously she was praying, and she was like, let's try this. She was always of the view of, how, I don't know, our parents' generation, where people, when they gave birth to certain children abroad and they were citizens, she didn't want it to be a case of, and then your parents like, we didn't do it, though, the window closed and everything. So she was always of the opinion, just do it, even if you come back, later on, just that you've moved, you've got a new second passport, etc., better life, etc. So that was it. So the second coming, fast forward to January 2022. So I came via the student route, masters this time. So got the admission, did it. Like I said, it was in the middle of getting married as well. So I wasn't just coming as I was a professional, so obviously I had to use my savings to pay school fees and all that kind of stuff. But I was also getting married, so costs were starting to mount. And then the dilemma of how do we come together? She was still working in the company in Lagos, and then so just all those questions. But I knew I had to do it, so I think I'm the kind of guy that if something has to happen, like if a decision has to be made, it has to be made. I knew I wasn't enjoying the trajectory I was on. Or I didn't. I just felt I was more so. We just pray to God, and then we'll run with it. So we did that. Lots happened, school, this and that, this and that. But fast forward to, did a lot of jobs, to the menial jobs. I remember working in a warehouse was it -2 degrees? They sell cold sandwiches.
Minus
You
two
know,
degrees here. What is minus 2 degrees? Sorry,
it,
sorry, please.
I mean, we're in the UK. Sorry, guys,
Okay,
but
okay,
but
okay.
all day, like I mean, in the warehouse, and for me, this was crazy. I mean, I never. It was always ambient temperature. Even if you were gonna walk indoors, but it was crazy. I remember there were Eastern Europeans that used to like that job because I guess cold was not into them. I guess maybe like you Canadians. But just doing all sorts. But then I remember when I switched to get like in the same line. So like I said, I'm a supply chain guy. So I remember getting my first professional job in line with the career I'd already built. So that whole continuation and settling down, and then having like a skilled workers visa, and just life just moving. So I would say now, to answer the question, I know this is a very long way to answer. I would say now it's more, I'm more at home, obviously, with my family now, my wife and my child. Working now, any money. The last time I wasn't working, I was depending on allowances for parents and stuff like that. Building my own life, my own community. I think I'm a bit more settled. Not a bit. I'm significantly more settled. And then obviously, um, knowing that I wanted to, there was a desire to move, and
Mm-hmm.
then almost coming full circle, not full circle, but just that progress being made. I think that kind of gives me a bit of inner peace or happiness or fulfillment, whatever you want to call it. So yeah.
That I find that interesting, but I wonder if it's a function of now. Do you think that if when you move the first time
Yeah,
and if you're working, would things be much easier? Like you know how it is when you have to ask mommy and daddy for money and stuff. Do you think that if you were trying to, because the thing about working is that it forces you to try and build your own life in some way.
absolutely. Yeah.
You think
Yeah.
that would have changed how you saw the UK that time, or it was a function of you couldn't do things you wanted to do, and so that meant that your view of the country at that point in time was limited by your limitations at that point in time.
Fair point. Maybe I think the first time, I think the goal. So, like I told you, it was not really the traditional thing for in my family for kids to go abroad for like first degree, right? So it was. I think I felt kind of fish out of water in a way, like in terms of what I was thrown into. So I remember some of my friends like really well. I would describe ourselves like middle class family, right? It's not something we used to do, but just you meet people, politicians, titans of industry, their children, and all that kind of stuff, and then throwing in the foreign element, the like people were spending. So I think I was living a very reserved, very I wanted to just go to school, do my parents right. I didn't want to blow the opportunity. I didn't want to. You know how when you're coming, you hear of those stories of that was the way we lost this child, or this one
Mm.
went abroad, and all full, that kind of thing. There were I
You
was
just
told
reminded
those
of my
stories.
parents.
Yeah, I mean, and my mom had family members like that, so it was real for them or for her, and I didn't want that to be my story, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah,
I
that
think it
does.
was very guarded. It was very I lived well within my means. I remember I used to almost reduce the pocket money. I was like, I know this is too much. You're sending me too much money. I was feeling
You're
guilty.
such a
You get
good
what I mean?
child.
I think I felt unworthy, if that makes any sense. Like I'm the last of seven. Six of my older siblings schooled in Nigeria. Like who dash monkey banana, if you get what I mean. Like it
Yeah,
felt a bit undeserved and all that. So yes, so that, and then academics is a different system. I think the UK education is different to what we used to. Remember then you had to do like courseworks where you do like 40 pages essay, and you do your own thing. It's totally different from the Nigerian
system.
experience. Yeah, coming from secondary school or foundation or A levels, whatever you want to call it. So I think maybe I was just grappling with a bit of all that in my head. I
Yeah,
really
which is fair.
couldn't yeah, really couldn't, like now, I think there's a bit of freedom. I mean, yes, you have to go to work and, express, but it's different, right? It's kind of your
Yeah,
own money. It's kind of,
yeah.
expectation is not, it's not, it's not too heavy on it. So, and then, like I said, with my own family as well. So maybe if I was alone, maybe, feeling a bit lost, or maybe, so now at least trying to build something, if that makes sense. I think it's definitely
Yeah,
made
it
me more
does.
settled. Mhm.
It does. And now you mentioned family. I'm just curious, like, when you think about what you missed most about home between the first missionary journey and the second missionary journey, what changed? Like the first time, what did you miss most about home? And now, what do you miss most about home? Especially because you have family with you. Because you've mentioned family a lot, which means to you, like
Y-
family is
y-
like a big part of your identity here.
Yes. So first time I would say was so young lad, you're just just out in the world. Like I said, I just felt like one of a number. Like you could literally see that nobody send your papa, if you get what I mean. Like you're kind of out there. The only people that really care is your family, your parents, your siblings, that kind of thing. So I think I felt homesick in that sense, and then the whole culture shock, and it wasn't great. You just you try to create new friendships, friends, but it wasn't really that deep because I didn't really move with my secondary school friends, if you get what I mean. Like I had to make new friends, so I didn't really feel like I had that tight tribal community. Although now funny enough, some of those friends from that era are now very good friends now, and
Friends.
yeah, and forming that tribal community, whatever you want to call it. Um, so I think I definitely missed that, beef. And then, to the point of, of trying to pay back and all, like I wanted to, you know, I didn't want to be a burden, quote unquote, like, going back and earn your own money and blah 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 blah. There was no pathway for that, post the undergraduate. Once I graduated,
Yeah.
that window was shut. So I had to kind of, do all that, go, start life, etc., etc. And now what I miss, this is an interesting topic because unlike most, including members of my family, my wife, I don't really miss much. And apart from maybe family, right? So, my dad, my mom is late now, God rest her soul. My
Yeah. Sorry about
siblings,
that.
no, it's all right. And maybe a few friends. No, I wasn't really most of the friends I had are in Canada with you. They've people jackpot, right? So it was an exodus,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Which is another story altogether. I think, speaking of storytelling, I think maybe someone needs to settle down and just write about what Nigeria is losing with this, massive exodus between, because it's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
I mean,
crazy
you
actually.
hear of the 80s when people went to Britain and greener pastures, but I think what's happened since 20 say 15, 16, all the way to now, or whenever people stopped coming because of currency or because of these countries, closing their borders, has been, we've lost, so many talents, brains, lots
Yeah.
of people, good people, people working multinationals, smart, intelligent, educated people, living just for, pastures new. So, so yes, so like I was saying, apart from, that family aspect of, being able to, so, just being able to go see my folks and just get on a local flight, or we used to do reunions. We used to do Christmas and Easter's, right, twice a year. Now this year I don't even know if I'm gonna see, folks. So those kind of things, I think is that aspect. But in terms of if it's, weather or food, all that kind of other stuff, I know it's a bit controversial, but so I and the reason, so when in UK, right, and everyone's always, oh, it's cloudy, whether it's crap, blah blah blah, it's wet, it's rainy. And I always say, I remember when I don't even know that period in Nigeria when it's so hot, especially in the night, that your fan will never be bringing out air. Like you'll be
Hot.
soaked, you'll be drenched on your bed. Like when you wake up next morning, it's as if you bed wet, but no, it's your sweat.
Yeah.
And I think I have the sweating gene. Like I remember growing up again, my dad's guy, maybe school or whatever. He didn't believe in AC, by the way. This is the difference that he says those things don't work. If I was like, Daddy, fix the AC, and he says, no, forget. If you take it to spoil again, just forget that thing. So we used to drive in non air conditioned cars, and like when you come in, my mom would be like, what happened? Like, did you go to the gym? No, it was just the sweat. So I don't miss that heat. I don't miss that extra sun because So here, if you're too cold, you could, layer up, or turn on the heater. There's always light. You you cannot, tear your shirt, or you can, hand fan. It's painful. Or like I said, even if you use the fan, nothing was coming out, and then fan is not the same as air conditioning. So from that whole weather angle, food, the way maybe because we're in the UK, I feel you can almost get whatever you want. Nigerian food is not that expensive. My wife used to say, yeah, it's too quiet, just being able to walk out on the street, and you buy okpa, you buy akara. I'm like, I don't need all that, man. Maybe in that aspect, I mean, I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts and you talked about trade-offs, right? So for
Yeah.
me, it was clear, like maybe because I told you my why, or I knew, um, like I just didn't like the way things were going, politically, economically, your money was losing value. I remember, to travel was not a problem. Like people that used to go, like in 20, maybe 14 or 13, people used to go to London. Like, people used to travel. And then
Yeah.
towards the end, all your
Became hard,
savings
became
for
impossible.
tickets, like condition, your standard of living were definitely dropping. And then, just the whole, how Nigeria can be now, just the unpredictability. And then you now add healthcare as well to it.
Yeah.
My wife had a baby about 5 months ago, and I know the experience that we went through. And I honestly think, thank God that we're here, that kind of thing. So you hear all kinds of stories. And yeah, so I like to think of myself as an optimist, or a glass half full kind of guy, right? So I definitely see the positives every day. Like, not as if I don't miss, like I said, family, and maybe just some of those intangibles, or those soft things, but I definitely am grateful for the opportunity and privilege and all that kind of stuff. And it just makes me feel bad that now with the rise of the you know right wing in, if it's UK and Trump in the US or Canada, whatever, it means that these opportunities will be close to people from wherever that want to, tired of where they are. Or like Chimamanda would say, it's not that you were fleeing famine or fleeing war, whatever. It was just, just tired of the, forgotten what she called it, whether it was anyhowness or whatever the quote was, and yeah, so it just feels like, people will be forced to just, make do, I guess, they'll have to be the change that they want to see in the country. So yeah.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question for you on that. But I think what I find really interesting is that you're really the Paul, because it's it's interesting how the person who was went to Japa is the person who's missing Nigeria the most. Not you, who tried to change your mind in 4 months. You just literally just moved on. While your wife, who was the Japa person, like, oh, I miss the Akara and Oba and all those things. And you're like, yo, we've moved on. Can
Oh.
we move on, please?
And I need to, I think I think I need to work on myself in that way, because so we have a newborn, right? So, and then, God being so kind, her folks were able to come over and spend some
Yeah.
time, and that was nice. So they've just come back now. And I was telling her, this is where the parenthood really starts now. This is where this is where it really tests us. And then, she was just saying, just imagine, in Nigeria, you have,
Yeah.
people around and help and blah blah blah. So I'm trying to just, when I'm just trying to just breathe in, breathe out. I understand where she's coming from. It's a very fair and valid point. I might not feel that way, but try and just have empathy and understand that it's not the same, and try and just, do my own part, as much as I can. It's not I can't do everything, but yeah, it's yes, it's kind of that way.
Just seeing how you see all this, how has immigration affected your relationships with people back home? Like, how has this move? Yeah, do you still maintain the same kind of connections with people back home, or do you think that you're more people here now? Just curious, because you have a very interesting take on how you've switched. You feel like you've switched off a big part of your Nigerian self in some way, and I'm assuming here. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm just kind of thinking, if that's how you see it. So how do you maintain? How has it affected relationships back home? How do you maintain those connections?
So I think I think it goes back to maybe the trajectory I took or the story, right? So 3 years away in uni, I think uni in Nigeria is where people really make some, lifelong friendships and stuff like. I had secondary
Ah,
school friends, but it's, maybe I'm on the, catching up with a few of them. I'm not really on any, old boys group or, old students group type thing. So
mm,
coming back, you know, post university, reconnecting again, doing my NYC, meeting new friends, but I don't think it was that deep per se. But
yeah, it's not. It's not.
yeah, it's not the same, right? And but I've always, anytime I find people fascinating or enterprising or intelligent or whatever, I always, make an effort to keep in touch. So I've kind of collected friends here and there, but it's not daily. It's not, there's no
Mm,
routine per se.
mm,
It's when we see or guy, or when you don't tell what's up. So I'll say where I really made real, try to build another level of connection was in my previous role, where I spent over 7 years in the multinational. And again, not that many friends because all your coworkers will not be your friends, but
yeah.
I think a handful, maybe two or three. And guess what? They've both jackpot. I think I went first, but they're in Canada. Yeah, both in Canada, right? Calgary and um, Ontario. I think that's what's called. Yeah, yeah. So it's been more. And then family scattered. I've got three family members in Canada. I've got the rest back home in Nigeria. Correct. Yeah. So it's been more catching up virtually, if you get what I mean. So it's been more, obviously with you guys, time zone difference thing.
Yeah.
You can't just pick up. So I miss that. I remember back then in Nigeria, like if there's hot office gist or gossip, oh my guy, how fast see what this person do. Now it's voice note. You have to drop it on WhatsApp. You wait to let them sleep, wake up. The energy has passed, and then blah blah blah. You know, um, live people have
Oh,
responsibilities, jobs, family, that kind of stuff. So I think it's switched to virtual. Um, do I miss the whole occasional after work? You go to pepper soup joint. Yeah, all those jai. But I've not even been a clubber per se. I, yeah, how people will hang out post work. Office gossip type of thing. Yeah, yeah, kind of miss it a bit. Yeah, don't really do that here because but,
yeah.
they do their pubs and thing, but it's not really the same. But what I think the conscious effort we're trying to do, understand my wife, is we really need to build our community now. Like this is where we build our family, friends, and
Yeah.
connections
Especially
and
because
all
I have
that
a
kind of
kid now.
stuff. Yes, kid, even before Toby came along, I was like, because you could get lonely again. So remember when I told you homesickness first, it could happen again. Like it did happen, and I was like, okay, Omo, it's now conscious now, because you won't really see the kind of friendships you want to work. If you find great, but the Nigerianness. I think you talked about switching on and off. This there's certain where we did game night with some of our very close friends the other day, and we're playing the Ninja bingo cards, like where you talk about where you see different Suya or or
Mm,
Amadioha, all those kind of things. You can't have those connections with your international colleagues, can you? So there's just that part that you're trying to recreate, and I think we're lucky in a way or blessed in the UK where I think you've got more opportunities, but it's still not easy. It's still not automatic because
yeah. You
I
have to
think
do the
that
work.
you have to do the work because everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own childhood friends, family, life. It's almost like speed dating, but not that extreme. But yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
and I hear you on that part about you schooling here and how that affects back home because you're right. And it kind of explains why people say if you're an international student, I have not thought about it this way. If you're an international student, you make more friends because you have time to make friends. You all
Yes.
do stuff together. You all, this time, at work, friendship at work is an interesting dance because do you trust the person enough to trust the person? You know what I mean? Like, do you
And there's
trust?
culture as well.
And there's
There, there,
culture,
there, there are
yeah.
things, yes, there are things that you're not sure, blah blah blah. I mean, on Twitter they will tell you there's all sorts of advice. Keep your distance. make sure you don't reveal too much. They will cast you, or I don't personally subscribe to all that. I think it's just you just need to use your judgment and common sense and blah
Yeah.
blah. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to integrate anyway. It's not as if you're
Yep.
trying to do your
Yep.
own
Yep.
little Nigeria here. Otherwise, you might as well go back. But there's wisdom to it, and I guess that's where building that community where you don't have to think about those things, at
Yeah.
least to a certain extent, and you could just be
Be
authentic,
yourself. Yeah. Just
full
be
Nigerian
yourself.
self. I think that'll be my take on it.
So we're rounding up here, and I want to ask a couple of questions that I feel are a bit emotional, which is, have you ever felt truly at home in the UK?
Deep, deep. I'll say yes. I'll say home is where you choose to make home, because I mean, just thinking, so before my first missionary journey, home was, back home in the family, going to school, coming back. That was peace settled, right? Coming, not really, I felt, kind of out of place, homesickness and all that kind of stuff. Went back, tried to find my feet. I was in a different city, right? I was in Ibadan, in the southwest. Never really felt that was my home, if you get what I mean. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
colleagues and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I know, we're all Nigerian, but I'm Igbo, and then, I definitely felt, not in a bad way, the Omo Igbo, or you introduce yourself, you say your name is Ugochukwu, and they will be like, importer, exporter, or,
Yeah.
trader, all
Yeah.
those
All
kind of
this.
small, yeah, I didn't really take offense, but I was kind of,
It's
that was not really
it
my home, if you get what
reminds
I
you.
mean.
It reminds you of who
Yeah,
you
yeah,
are.
yeah,
That sort of thing.
of who you are, yeah, and so I mean, that was definitely not my home, if you get what I mean. I've not really spent too much time in Lagos per se, or so where is home to me, if you get what I mean. So for me, home is where I'm building now, or and I don't think I'm tied to a physical location per se. So if whatever the future holds, I think you carry your home with you, or you make your home with you, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good point. I mean,
yeah.
again, it's also the thing. I think you said this in the pre-call about, or I think on the call, I don't remember now, but it's not about lived experience. Like, it's the lived experience, and lived experience affects how how you interact with these things, and which is why I say to people a lot that people always assume that the immigrant experience is one. It's not a monolith. It's not one. Everybody
Absolutely
comes
not.
at it from
Absolutely not.
different things based off how you are raised, who you are, like, just a ton of things, and seeing that you see home that way, and thinking about all you went through the first time, how do you think your sense of identity has evolved over time, especially this second time around? Like, are you still like, who are you? Who do you think you are right now? Like, do you think you're, because I hear you say, oh, some people will say, I want to build a community, but I want to build a community with Nigerians and internationals and all that kind of stuff. But I hear you talk about stuff like building a safe space, which is so your people. So who do you think you are right now? Like, or how do you see your identity? Like, are you Nigerian British, or
I,
British Nigerian, or you
no, no.
know?
I'm definitely not British, at least not yet. Um, like officially. It's a very interesting question, because I think I talked about culture shock coming first time.
Yeah.
I definitely felt a bit different when I went back. So the reverse culture shock. So
Yes.
I definitely felt like thinking different than other Nigerians, or seeing things differently, or maybe like you said, lived experience. I spent 3 years abroad. You know, at school there. The way I was seeing things, like even within my family, like I felt I was different. Like the way they would see things, or the way they react to things were different from me. So I think I was a bit more reserved and chilled, and just I'm like, okay, that's it. Like, so that identity is a bit tricky, if you get what I mean, because not fully British, not fully Nigerian, and then you do it again, and then you're like, so if I so maybe okay, so coming back, I don't think I felt another culture shock, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't really double culture shock. It's, it's kind of expecting it. I've been there, done it. Yes, about 10 years apart, but some things don't change too much, right? Um, Identity. I def Obviously I'm Nigerian. Like, if I'm ever in doubt, I should just look in the mirror. Like, I'm a dark skinned proper Niger guy. Let me not. I'm not Kemi Badenoch that thinks she's more British than the king or whatever. I'm fully aware of my heritage, and I'm proud Igbo man as well. I embrace it. Um, and I obviously, I bless you, identify with
Thanks.
Nigerian culture and spirit, and all that's good. But I think I also identify our drawbacks, and I also am appreciative of the opportunity to do something else, like I said. So rather than just being trapped in
Yeah.
the geographical, territorial space of Nigeria and say, this is what it is. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to live a different kind of life. And even Tired who says, I won't come and meet you in Canada, right? So it's, that whole, how in Nigeria, I remember there was a friend I used to say, she feels American at heart. Like, she had never traveled before. Just feels that country is not. No, 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 no. Nigerians are too much in your business, too conservative, too this, too that. She's American at heart. So, um, I think I'm very me, if that makes sense. I think I don't think I need to fall into any predefined notion of what I should be as a Nigerian or Nigerian British, etc., etc. I think kind of like creating the best parts of the cultures and trying making into um my own or our own, and then passing it down as a family tradition, similar to what
Mm.
we inherited. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
Hmm.
That's actually fair, to be honest. And I think again, that's the power of immigration in the sense that when
Yeah.
you move to a new place, you have the
Yeah. Your mind is
gift
open. Yeah. Hmm.
of being able to take the good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's for me, that's the superpower. And some people don't take advantage of it, and that's sad.
Yeah, they just closed up in their circle. So you know how I mean, especially in the UK where people have their you could live in a very Nigerian community, Yoruba community, or like you could pretty much have your Nigerian life
If you
in
wanted.
yeah, if you wanted. It's 100%. You will even have to speak English. Yeah. And it happens in all our cultures as well. I know, Pakistani, Indian, etc., etc. They have those, but I don't think that's for me. To each their own.
Yeah. And I think my
Mhm.
last one for you is, what's the one thing you'd have done differently in hindsight?
For which one now? First or second missionary
Both
journeys?
of them. Maybe second actually, because I feel like, yeah, you came with the lessons of the first time, but still, do you think there's anything you have done differently?
Hmm. Second missionary journey. Um. Honestly speaking, like looking back in hindsight, I'm so grateful to God. Like things have gone way better than my expectations. I remember when I was leaving, like I was resigning from my job, like multinational stable job, biggest boy in Ibadan, like car, blah blah blah. And I remember like there was this older colleague and super nice to me and everything. And she was like, "So what will you now do when you're going for masters? Like no job. Like they were wishing you well, but they were worried and like, so you got so money, like you're going to spend money from your savings. You just got married. Like I even remember a family friend, an older man. He was like, you just got married and you're the one that is really. Are you? Are you? So that said, so maybe my advice would be don't be me. Don't jump into the water. With your 2 feet and maybe plan more carefully and all that kind of stuff. Plan in advance. But again, some of these things, the windows are only there for a bit.
Yeah, yeah. You have
Like
to take it. You have to
yeah,
take
the
it.
immigration laws have changed now, and the currency devaluation and all that kind of stuff. So maybe plan, but sometimes you just you have to move when you have to move. You maybe take advantage. So looking back, I'm grateful to God for the way everything panned out, and by His grace, He continued to lead us and everything. So really, I don't like maybe maybe follow my blueprint if there was one. But yeah, I can't really, because I mean, if you change one thing, who says it's not going to affect anything
Yeah.
else? And then
Fair.
and then
Fair.
divine providence, and then yeah, it's really good. I think just believing in the supreme and saying just realizing that it's really good that that led you this way, that led all your parts, orchestrated the move, I guess.
Thank you, G. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. It's nice to do this. Shout out to Jola as well for the true pass, for the link up. Yeah,
I like
and
that
he's
term, true pass.
yeah,
Such a
he's
very Nigerian term in the context you
yes,
used it.
yes. And that's one thing. I'm also playing games virtually, something I'm just trying to get into. So, adding all my friends, everywhere. So that's another way of, you asked about how do you
Connecting.
keep in touch. Yeah. Just, it's a good thing. I remember 2 weeks because I got PS5 for my birthday and, the game and everything. And then I connected with my friend in Canada. And then, so I called him. I was like, give me your username. And he gave me. And then I connected on the FIFA or EAFC, whatever they call it now. And then from the phone, the voice switched to the controller. I was like, I didn't hear your voice for this controller. He said, yes. He was shocked as well. Like, we didn't really know, what was possible. I was like, this is a very cool tool to connect. I was like, okay, maybe next level will be webcam and then we'll be seeing each other and then playing and all that kind of
God.
stuff. So that's another way of keeping in touch, actually, virtually and everything. But obviously, the time difference is rubbish. So.
Yeah, it's the time difference isn't great
So
at all.
yeah, so we just have to see how to make it work. But yeah, it's all good in general. General is just grateful.
All right then. Thanks a bunch. Thanks for coming on the show. It's
Yeah,
good
thanks for
chatting with
having
you,
me.
man.
Likewise, man.
That was a really good one. As always, thank you so much. Please subscribe, sign up. If you know someone we should talk to, send them our way. And if you know someone who finds it useful, please share this with them. Thank you. Ciao.